All right, we are back with our lightning set review for Hidden Legends. I am joined once again by the lovely Rouge Rose. How are you doing?
Hello, Mr. Ghoul. Thank you for having me on. Always a pleasure.
All right, we got some really interesting. I think lightning is one of the more exciting elements of this set. We'll have a lot to talk about, and where better to start than with this gorgeous Final Fantasy VI Valley Garmanda 4 CP summon. This is our hero summon for lightning. Choose a forward, dull it, freeze it, loses 9,000 power, do it 9,000 damage. So I can't even keep a straight face talking about this card. It's so funny.
May I?
Go right ahead.
So I'm assuming this is the original Japanese name. In the US version of 6, this Esper was called Tritouch, and his whole thing was Tri-Disaster. He would hit them with fire, lightning, and ice all at once. And clearly they're emulating that in the card, which is cool. I appreciate the theme. It's definitely overkill. I like, and the dull freeze is like clearly. I can't imagine what forward can lose 9k, deal 9k, and then will be alive to be dull frozen. So it's kind of goofy. It's unfortunate it doesn't really work with the 6 decks just because it's lightning. Yeah, but it essentially says kill anything you want. Like, again, what forward is going to survive that? Is that worth 4 CP? Maybe. There's no restriction on it. And I guess if for some reason they were like, it's going to hit them with something, right? Immune to dull freeze? Okay, it'll kill them. Oh, they can't lose power? Okay, well, now they're dull frozen. So, yeah. 4 CP for a kill spell, instant speed. I don't mind that. So, he's amusing. He's funny. I like him.
I just love the fuck this guy in particular energy of the card.
Yeah, right?
um, I think the fact it's a summon actually holds it back more for 6 than the fact that it's a category 6. I think that
Mm,
I've messed around with playing Ice Lightning Fire 6 before, where you use the Emperor, because the Emperor Gestalt backup is really good.
yeah.
And you still have Mobius, the Lightning of the Dream Stooges. This
Yeah.
gives you a third Lightning card you can consider playing. And, even in a 6 deck, you can cast a 6 summon and get the reveal off of a lock.
Hmm.
He won't draw you one if he sees it, but he will allow you to draw if you cast this. So this guy, if you also tack on draw a card to this guy, he feels a little better even there. And I did a bit of a research on this. There is no 4 CP kill a guy in Lightning
Yeah.
without extra steps. This is a 4 CP kill a guy in Lightning. And if he doesn't die, he's out of commission for a turn.
Yeah.
So I kind of like it for that. Is it amazing? I think it's a little expensive, but it definitely
Yeah.
could see play. Another card I think could see a decent amount of play is this Odin. So category 7 and Mobius. 5 CP, EX Burst, choose a forward opponent controls, break it, remove as many cards from the top of your deck as the CP required to cast the chosen forward. What do you think? What's your first thought on this?
So the first thing I compared it to was the Opus 13 Odin. That was a card I used a lot. It costs 5, has an EX burst. That one could only target forwards of 5 or less, which nowadays is pretty much most of the relevant stuff in the game. There's a few things it couldn't hit, whereas this one can just outright hit anything. That Odin would always get cheaper on damage 5, which sometimes was really relevant, other times was difficult to get to. Uh, Thankfully, it doesn't mill the cards, so you can't go, oh, and also, surprise,
Oh
here's Raijin and
God!
Fujin. So it does outright remove them. That's not an effect I've always been into because knowing my luck, it's like, oh crap, there went the 2, 3 cards, whatever that I really wanted to do. And if a deck out does matter, he's putting you that much closer to deck out. But it's an unrestricted break on an EX burst. That is easier to cast. I don't know. At the same time, though, I'm kind of talking myself out of it now that he's only 2 CP cheaper than the 7 cost Odin, which doesn't have that deck removal downside. So I don't know. Now I'm not really sure what to think about him. What do you think?
I think if you ever cast a 7 CP Odin in a game, you lost that game.
Yeah,
So
fair.
that's in a deck as just having the EX in the corner. And this does do the 7 CP Odin thing with the EX in the corner. I think this is a straight improvement over the 7 CPX Odin if there is any random potential of you casting the card.
Mm,
Just because I think that the downside of removing cards to the top of your deck is significantly less impactful than just by paying 2 extra CP for the card.
That's fair.
We did just get the Odin last set that was the 9 CP, and from experience, that card feels really bad if you can't remove the costs for it.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Like that card it's stone unplayable if you don't have the 6 cards in there. I think I would have considered this in the Ice Lightning deck that I took to Oceania, the OCE Championship, because it was so hard to reduce the cost of the 9 CP Odin on that deck. It just didn't come up very often. And this is just a card you could consider casting that does not whiff on, like, some of the most important forwards in the game. Une is a big one. Like, if you can't kill an Une, you're going to lose that game, right? I will do anything to get Une off the field sometimes, and this guy does get Une off the field. And the nice thing is that, like, the downside scales down with the level of the threat. Like, sure, there's a lot of ways of getting a Refia off the field, but if you have to cast this to kill a Refia, you're only losing 3 cards, which is, I think, pretty fair. Just don't use this to kill a Chaos.
Yeah.
One other small thing that could be relevant is with X-Death. Right now, there's a weird issue with X-Death against Mono Water in particular, where you want to get X-Death down to reduce their break zone, but when you do that, you often don't get 20 cards removed from the game. This can round that up better, which was one of the big awkward things about X-Death and why I started kind of not liking the card very much in Lightning. Maybe now you can use X-Death a little more proactively and just assume you'll hit an Odin to round it up eventually.
Yeah, that's a good use.
Up next, we have Guardian. 3 CP, standard unit backup. It says the cycle of enters the field, draw a card. If you have 4 more lightning backups, you do get to also dole 2 forwards, which is, like, actually pretty strong as far as, like, closing games out. Getting 2 forwards dole is really good. I think the 3 CP draw a card is just generally a really good rate for a backup in general. You know, we talk, like, how long was Geomancer playable in Monofire, for instance, right?
Yeah.
I think my only question on this card then, because I think it's unquestionably good, and if Mono Lightning is ever a playable deck, or even like Lightning X, you could consider this in those decks and just say I'll never get the bonus effect, is that last effect is strange because when I think of aggro, I'm not getting to 4 lightning backups in a deck that wants to dull 2 forwards and push for game a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Now, this could also just say, like, well, late game, you just get the 1 forward out of the way and use it to push for lethal, which is obviously, I think, the intended usage of it. And in that situation, I think when it comes up, you'll feel really, really good, but I don't think it needs that to be a playable card.
Yeah, I caught that contradiction as well. As like, well, that's kind of a cool way to push for lethal. Well, wait a minute, though. Are you setting up backups if you're, like, pushing at him with lightning? So, yeah, well said.
Juggler, this is the other standard unit backup. The ones where it's like, if you play a forward of that element this turn, you can sack it to do something. This one breaks a 2 CP or less forward, which is, you know, that's good text. Thinking of cards like Thunderdrake that have seen a bit of experimentation in the past. The Kuja backup with EX Burst. I really like breakable backups, especially if you're in a deck that's trying to play a lot of them, because it means that your backups can do other things. I like the speed of these. There's the potential for you going, like, play Juggler and then play LB Cloud, and then you can break 2 forwards in the same turn, you know, without having this on the field at all to start with. So I just kind of like this guy in general. Is he going to see a lot of play? Probably not, but I wouldn't be shocked if he was like a one of here and there, especially with Luso around.
Yeah, no, well said.
The Emperor, I think this is... Let's see, do we have the pre-release promo version? We don't here. I think this is one of the most interesting cards in the set, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. So the Emperor is a Stranger Paradise 3-cost 5k, so he's below curve, for whatever that matters nowadays. When he enters the field, you gain a crystal. If your opponent has a crystal, you gain a second crystal. He has 2 action abilities. The first one is spend a crystal and dull him to choose a forward of cost 4 or less and just break it. And for 3 crystals, you get to break every forward and monster your opponent controls. What is going through your head when you read this card?
Have you seen those memes where it's like people in heaven and they say, come join us, and then it's like whatever is relevant to the message? So the Emperor is sitting there looking up into the clouds, come join us, and Curry Wazette from Opus 17 and Astos from Opus 21 are sitting there, come join us. All 3 of them have amazing action abilities with insane effects, that have never seen play, and you never see them go off because they all require 3 crystals, and you have to dull them. Curry Wizette could dull freeze an entire opposing board. Astos would dull all their forwards and then deal 9k to all of them, which was sick. And this guy just breaks every forward and monster. All 3 of those effects are amazing. Break all forwards and monsters, an incredible ability. Why don't any of those see play? Because they require 3 crystals and they have to be able to dull. So I think the Emperor's going to go right in that zone. The fact that he could potentially generate 2 on entry is kind of cool, but it also then means they're playing crystals as well. So like, again, it's just I want you to make that crystal video because I think this just falls in that slot. It's a good ability. Even the first effect, like crystal dull break a 4 cost, that's solid. That's really solid.
How many years did Robo Akbel see play for a similar ability?
Yeah, it's huge, but it's that crystal thing. So Emperor, you go join Curry and Astos, and we'll send the next one along whenever that shows up.
Yeah, they've kind of. It feels like they've decided if they put the dull symbol on a card, they're allowed to print "You win the game" next to it now.
Mm-hmm.
Between this and like Hythlodaeus, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can't argue. Like historically, the cards that have this text are not good. Astos has seen a little bit of people messing with it, but like, but like this is so much better than Astos.
Yeah.
Like that has to be worth something. I think that the element is a lot better as well. Like giving something haste in ice is really hard.
True.
In like if you say like lightning crystals, the first thing that comes to mind is Lady Lilith. Lady Lilith can give the Emperor haste.
Yeah.
Now that says you got to have 4 crystals, and you've also got to, not die to a Brynhilde or a Warrior of Light Ping while this is going on. But like, you start to see like these like little pieces, and it's like maybe this time, and like Jack is in this set, which may be the best crystal generator we've ever gotten. There's Lucio, which is another like incredible way of generating a ton of crystals very quickly. But man, like the other issue that I think timing it is going to be actually a little tricky to find. It's a big bullet, but like that bullet is really expensive. You're going to be rebuilding to the next one for a while. So if you fire it a little too soon, you try to interrupt your opponent from doing something. Maybe they go to they like threaten combat with the Refia, and then like they go like do something afterwards. Like you're going to feel really bad.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, the fact that he dies to a Warrior Light Ping too. Like, would he have been busted if he was a 6k so he could at least survive through that? I don't know.
Yeah, I do think it's very funny that he somehow, for some reason, punishes your opponent for having a crystal. I haven't done the DLC for Stranger of Paradise. I still need to do it at some point. I wonder what the heck the lore is there. Why are we doing this? But
yeah, I haven't played it either.
I think it's the most interesting card. I think it has a huge ceiling, which I think the ceiling is big enough where you should be messing with this card, whether or not it ends up being good or not.
Yeah.
Cidolfus, this is the dominant for Lightning, 3CP EX, 5k. I don't know why Lightning just randomly got all the small guys this set. When Cidolfus enters the field, search for a Lightning summon, add it to your hand, and then he primes into Ramuh for 3. Just on the face of it, this is pretty playable, right? 3CP EX, search a Lightning summon. Lightning has a lot of really good summons. There's the Odin that breaks a forward monster and draws a card if you have enough Lightning characters. Ixion is a classic. The 1CP Ramuh you can use to kind of nuke a Tomos in the early game. You can get an Odin, break anything outright. I don't think the strength of Lightning summons is really going to be a problem with Cidolfus. If there's any negative I can think of, it's that he does something on entry. So if you really, really, really want to prime him the same turn you play him, and your opponent has a Brynhilde or a Warrior of Light Ping, they can kill the Cidolfus before you ever have a chance to prime it because you can't prime it instant speed.
Yeah.
But with that all out of the way with, I think the card in general is quite strong.
Yeah, I'll have to double check them all to be 100% sure. I think he's the only icon that the priming is actually more expensive than just like because the Ramuh costs 5, so just playing Ramuh for 5. Whereas if you play Cid for 3 plus prime him for 3, I think he's because I think everybody else it's either equal to or it's less than the cost of like playing the icon outright. So he's the only one who's like slightly more expensive. Other than that, he's just generically good. He obviously feeds right into the Ramuh because he can get you a summon you can use right away. EX bursts are never bad. So yeah, he's good.
The logic on why Ramuh is more expensive when primed than Cidolfus is because of the search. He actually does cost one less if you factor in that you get 2 CP back off of the lightning search.
Oh, I gotcha. That makes sense.
Which is kind of a neat idea, actually. If you don't need the summon you're searching, he does still prime for the same cost as the other icons and give you a little discount. Card's just generally pretty solid, but Jack, Garland, this is another interesting one with a lot of mixed opinions. First of all, I love the art on this card. It's so cool.
Yeah, it's so different. It's very unique.
Yeah, Ruby Asami is just killing it for art. She did the Genesis this set. She did the Null and the Sarah and the Caius last set. Like, she's just the best artist in the game right now, I think. As far as the card itself goes, so 4 CP, Job Chaos got a little bit of when this was first revealed. Like, is this going to go in the Chaos deck? Probably not. I don't think this does what the Chaos deck really wants. And he has really interesting text. So, the forward's opponent controls must attack if able. The forward's opponent controls must block if able. And if a character your opponent controls is put from the field into the break zone by any means, you gain a crystal. Notably, if this had been printed 3 sets ago, that would say this only triggers once per turn. This is a way of, you could go Jack Garland, Ixion, wipe 20 forwards off the field and make 20 crystals immediately.
Mm-hmm.
How realistic is that? Who knows? What are you doing with that many crystals? Who knows? But, I mean, this is all interesting and powerful text. And then also, I've heard people say, well, this is just a black belt. It doesn't do anything. What do you think? What's your first thought?
So it reminded me there was a card that came out in Opus 16 called Lael, and he had a similar text. He was a 5-cost 8K in Earth, but he actually made all forwards attack, including your own, and all of them must block. So Jack is like an improvement on that because he only affects your opponents, so you're not forced to make trades you don't necessarily want to. I like this card a lot from a design standpoint, just because, again, I miss those old days of those combat battles, and that combat really mattered, and having to attack and having to block. A lot of people say combat doesn't really matter like it used to, and yeah, at least he's a 9K black belt, but you could also argue he is, if you're losing the game, you plopping this down isn't going to change anything, If you're winning the game, does he also change anything? So I just don't really know where he goes. You need to... And then he's tied to crystals, which is weird. So what is your payoff for the crystals? Is this how you get the Emperor? But if they're dying anyway through this effect, then what does the Emperor even have left to break? So I don't know. Most crystals are offensive effects, even if you think of Lilith. But the way he's getting the crystals is that their characters are dying. So then what do you need the crystals for? So I don't know. I would love to see this at Worlds. I would love to see someone show me the light on this guy, because I don't think he's bad. I just don't know what you do with him.
Yeah, I think that's the big question. There's so many, really interesting 2-card combos with them, I think. Lady Lilith, all of a sudden now, when you use the mode of Lady Lilith to pay 2 crystals to break something, he immediately refunds you one of the crystals, so you can start just kind of machine gunning forwards down with Lady Lilith. Because I believe the break on Lady Lilith isn't actually a once per turn. It's the gain a crystal ability and the haste are once per turn. If you have a warped Estinian, well, nobody will ever, block the Estinian, right?
Yeah.
Well, now you warp the Estinian, whatever, I'm going to throw my stuff out, I'll take 2 damage next turn, I don't care. And then you go, Jack, you're blocking this big, 18k first striker. Rug, same thing. You go Jack plus Rug, and then, you attack with the Rug, they got to block the 9k first striker, and they got to block the Jack, and they're losing 2 forwards, There's so many interesting things that he does with that, and he's one-sided, like you mentioned. So if you have these Lady Liliths, you don't have to lose your own Lady Lilith to her, being forced to attack.
Yeah.
He's cheaper than Lael. Lael cost 5, and Lael also would struggle because he would lose to his own floodgate effect sometimes, where it's my opponent has a bigger forward, and I got to swing my 8k, I'm going to lose them. So I think it's really cool. I see both sides of this. I don't know if this is the card that like lightning is really missing, or like lightning plus something else. But he could be really good. You can play him in like Ice Lightning, and you dull the fours you don't want to block out of the way, so they can't chump block with Leo. They got to block with the actually important guys. And then you could play him. He has no text, or like your opponent could Cullens him and you lose the game on the spot, right? So, speaking of these really cute arts, we talked about this with the Earth one. I love these playing cards, by the way.
I know, that's such good art.
This is Chime, 2 CP, Job Minister. Really simple. When she enters the field, reveal the top 4. Character costs 2 or less, put the rest on the bottom of the deck in any order. I think this card's just pretty good. I think if free forward is nice, she can dig you towards backups. She can dig you towards 2 or less. You can get a 1 cost if you need to. Sadly, I think she's going to go in the Chaos deck as well now. She gets the 1 cost Chaos for specials. She can get a Blue Worm, or that deck plays a lot of 2 cost cards anyway. It needs some number of lightning cards for a Stinian or like an Alize, and so I hate that. Like, that sucks. But like, this card isn't bad.
I love a card that replaces itself, and man, the more I look at this art, the more I pick up little details. Like, I love those bunches of grapes kind of up by her ear on that ribbon, and then you got the stream of Moogles coming in behind her. I've never played that game, but they're great. Hobby Japan, I make a challenge for you, and you can do it in this cute, chibi, like colorful art style too. Make the Class 0 cadets all the cards of the playing deck, so you have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and put them with their right number. Like, that'd be really cool, right? Yeah, but Chime's very straightforward. But again, she replaces herself on entry, presuming you built around it. Yeah, it's a fun card. I really like it.
I was so shocked because I thought these were like a real thing that just like pulled playing cards that they made for this like as a promotional thing, and they like just said like, well, we made the art for these, we'll just throw them on. These are new arts for the game, by the way. Like, that's why they're all in full art. I don't know. Maybe like if this game goes like 100 sets, we'll have like a full set of them, and we can actually play cards with these. But yeah, just so cool. So this is Null. This is some of the best art in the entire set. Again, Ruby Asami did no harm at all. What is this card, though? I've seen like some people say like you could play this in 13, and you now have an unblockable attacker to get your first attack for lightning. And to anybody that would say that, I would say the 19 starter null is also unblockable for all intents and purposes when he attacks as a 9k haste. Yeah, as a 9 or 10k haste, like that might as well say unblockable. He costs less. He doesn't die to a stiff breeze.
He also can dull stuff out of the way, like.
Something on this card just looks wrong. Like there's like this huge spot for text, and there's just none of it. Like,
yes.
The closest comparison I have with this card is there's that like the Warp Monk with Brave and nothing else. Which like became a meme in our like in Dallas. It is such a meme that like we had a trophy that was just that monk art. Like, that's what this card reminds me of the most, is that like terrible common monk. And this is a rare too. Like, what? I don't know.
Maybe they like the art so much they're like, you know what? We'll take off the other 2 lines of text that were there just so we can show the art. Yeah, dude. When I read this, null haste. Okay, that's can't be blocked. That's simple. And I said, so he's probably 8k. Looked in the corners like 3,000. Like, why is his power so low? Why? I don't get it. I don't get it.
I guess the idea is his power doesn't matter because he's never going to be involved in combat anyway.
Yeah, but it does when they can blast him with fire and lightning and things.
They crack a single goblin and he freaking dies. Yeah, right?
Oh my god, he dies to a goblin. That's terrible.
He dies to Wing Wraith in this set, in Limited. The 1 cost win summon kills him.
Yeah, what the... What?
It really does, like, I don't know if it's like the art too. It looks like they just erased part of the text box.
Yeah. They did, yeah. Like the text almost looks like, wait, what happened to the rest of it? You did something with it.
So yeah, card's terrible. It's funny, but it's terrible. Speaking of terrible, this is the city of Vivi. Um, Enters the field, does 2,000 damage to all the damaged forwards, and then he can dull himself to choose a damage forward and do him 4,000 damage. This is the limited lightning card of all time, basically. There's the Gunbreaker and the Machinist. Vivi follows in a long story traditions of really crappy lightning limited cards. Hey, Firion, this is a familiar card.
Hold on, sorry. Can you go back to Vivi really quick? I just want to gush about like how bad he it'd be one thing if what if he could enter and instead of the dull symbol he could dull himself, and it doesn't have to be a damage forward. You could like shoot something and then it would like stack on his. Why? So they have to be damaged, and then he has to sit there. Just why? Again, what is? I don't get it. I don't get it. So you can go now.
He's not meant to be playable like anywhere outside of like the last draft common if you're in Lightning, basically.
Yeah, I guess.
It also is funny. He's a 5K. You know. No, I mean the card is just bad. Like there's not.
Yeah.
It's a little sad that they used some of their VV art on this, but maybe that means when we get our like next VV legend, he'll be like a Ruby Asami gorgeous art or something instead.
Yeah,
or
we can only hope.
The Metal Gear Solid artist that did the Fenrir and the Leviathan this set.
Yeah.
So, Firion, this was my spoiler. I talk about it a lot in that video. So I'll let you talk about this one here since I've said quite a bit about this card already.
Yeah, I don't know if I can add much new. He's a warrior rebel, so like two good jobs, except we already have one of the best Firions in the card draw one in the Tyvis package. Plus, to get his haste effect, you have to have lightning. So I just don't know if he's going to fit there. The special is really cool. Like, I love the idea that you attack, boom, break something, pop him right back up. But imagine trying to do that the turn you play him. So it's 2 to play him, another 2 to make him attack right away. That's 4, and then you have to spend another 4. So a total of 8. I don't know. The special's cool, but other than that, I don't know where else he's gonna go.
So this is Behemoth. This is Lightning's version of this cycle of monsters. This one's actually gotten a lot of people talking. So, same text, category FFT. When he's put from the field into the break zone, you choose a forward you control. Till the end of the turn, it gains if this forward deals damage to your opponent, the damage becomes 2 instead. So, this is a card I've done a decent little bit of messing around with already, just to try to see. Because my initial reaction was this card sucked. Like, was really bad. And there's only one use case that I really like this card. Because on a normal situation, if you attack with a forward and then you use the Behemoth on it to do 2 damage instead of 1, you could have just played a Thunderdrake. Or a Blue Worm, right? And those are cards that do something other than do a point of damage, but usually they also do a point of damage. So to me, for this card to be worth playing at all, I need a multi-attacking forward. And there's a couple of them. Firion, Listinian is like probably the most commonly played one right now. People are going to mess with Ravana. I implore you, do not mess with Ravana. People have tried. People have tried for years and years and years. I don't think this is the card that breaks Ravana. There's the Odin Legend. This set could be really key with it because then, like, you know, you only need like 1 Odin special and you have a 6 damage, which is kind of absurd. But it's so easy to interrupt, and it doesn't do anything. Like, you have to be willing to put 4 CP effectively when you count the card in hand into doubling the forward's damage for a single turn. And that's a big ask, even in really aggressive Unga Bunga decks for me. Do you see anything different? What's your thought?
I was gonna say, is this the card that makes Ravana finally playable? So I'm glad you mentioned that. I mean, it could make it a 1-turn kill if you have that and enough characters to break. I was actually kind of excited for this card just before you said a specific word. Because again, it kind of has that old school cheese factor, and I like the idea of it sitting there and being like, haha, at any time I could do it. But then you said the words Thunder Drake, and I was like, oh yeah, you could also just play Thunder Drake, kill something on entry. You also now have that additional attack just sitting there that's untargetable for the most part, that can go in whenever it wants. Like, if you think about it in those terms, yeah, there's just no reason to use this.
Yeah, so you have to find something stupid to do with this guy.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And there are stupid things you can do with him, notably. Um, yeah, the only other thing I can think of for this card, and I'll mention it briefly, Chaos needs 2-cost monsters. And it doesn't want to run Thunder Drake because Thunder Drake is mandatory and has to hit its own stuff. So you could play this in that deck, but even there, you can play Melusine,
Yeah.
which is, if you're like running one copy of it, Melusine is a 2-CP forward that can get a blocker out of the way with, and it's animated at any point to kill something. Like, what does that do that this doesn't? Not very much. So, like I said, you got to have that multi-attacker, and it's a lot of pieces to line up, and to dare your opponents and not have, Cucullin, Amaterasu, Lev 6 to bounce their forward. Like, it feels so bad if you do something with this, and then the forward leaves, doesn't do any damage.
Yeah.
So, we'll see. I don't have particularly high hopes for it outside of maybe Chaos.
Yeah.
Mid, this is... I think this is one of only 2 16 backups in the set. Kind of surprised they didn't go a little hammer on it. I thought we would get, like, I was sure we would get, like, the mom and have people ripping the card up for the mom. So 2 costs. 1, sacrifice her. Choose a forward of cost 4 or less. Add it to your hand. If it's Cidolfus, play it to the field instead. You can only use it during your turn. This seems just pretty solid all the way around. If you're playing Cid, she effectively turns into another copy of it. You can 1 plus her play Cid for 2 without having the Cid in hand. You kind of just get to, like, manifest a Cid out of nowhere, which could be cool. Even outside of that, this can add back, like, an Alize and Scions. Get back an Alize, play the Alize. That deck often has an issue with, like, running out of that, or, like, Estinian's another one you can get back. That all seems pretty solid as a 2-CP backup that, like, you don't really need to do anything with her early to make that good. So, just a matter of going from there.
I think it's really good with the Cidolfus play, but outside of that, this kind of reminds me of a worse version of one of my favorite backups from Opus 11, and it was a Kingsglaive card called Crow. So she was 3 up front, but then you could use her to dull a forward, so you could use her to, like, prevent damage, and then she could get back any forward and bring it back to your hand. Whereas mid is 2 up front, so 1 cheaper, but then you have to spend another 2 by dulling, or I guess maybe you don't count that. And then you lose the bat. I don't know, like, again, for the Cidolfus play, I think it's good. If I'm just trying to generically recur stuff, I'll just stick with the Crow and then dull something on the way out.
I mean, the difference between a 2-CP backup that does nothing on entry and a 3-CP backup that does nothing on entry is really
I know the
big.
game's progressed a lot since
Like,
then.
I love Crow. Crow's one of my favorite cards of all time. Sadly, she hasn't been playable in about...
Yeah. She hasn't seen... Yeah. I get it.
In probably 12 sets now. So, in that situation, then, I think it's like a modernized version of Crow. This, like think about how many bad backups people are playing and stuff like Mono Earth, or like that type of, like, just get it down, and then if it does something later, that's gravy.
Yeah.
And she could very easily be fit into those types of decks. So I actually really like this card. It's played a lot of Mono Lightning. Moving on, speaking of Lightning, here is Lightning. 4CP, 9k. Discard a card. She gains 1,000 power and haste. This is a common.
It is a common, yeah. I'll be getting 1 copy of this since she's playing the clarinet, and for my girlfriend because she's a professional clarinet player, and that's about it.
It'll be okay and limited, like, above curve. This set, like, the body size of this set is randomly really large, almost across the board. Haste and limited is always really strong, even on a pretty bad card. It'll matter there for giving you lightning names for the legend if you get really lucky and pull it, and you have extra access to the lightning legend in the set thanks to Snow. This actually could just be okay thanks to Snow as well in limited. It has no relevance anywhere else.
Yeah.
Ranan, this is the Warrior of the Crystal for Lightning. I think we talk about that when we get to the
Yep.
most important card in that. Ramuh, this is our Lightning Icon, 5 CP, 9k. When he enters the field, or when Cidolfus primes into Ramuh, you can cast a summon of cost 5 or less from your hand without paying the cost. When you cast a Lightning Summon, choose an active forward opponent controls, deal it 8,000 damage. What's your initial thoughts here?
It's a little strange that the priming or the entry can be any summon, but then he really wants to use a lightning summon to like get the additional effect. I do like him better than some of the other ones like Titan. Again, he has at least an ongoing threat. Maybe it's not a cheap ongoing threat because you have to keep casting lightning summons and then you're back to that active keyword. But at least it's something. He's not just that one and done pop. He's a 9k, so he'll survive Amaterasu. Like, there's nothing wrong with this text. I don't know. I don't know what deck you have that you can just keep popping off lightning summons, which also implies they have a lot of forwards that you can keep breaking. So I'm not. It's almost like forward overkill because most lightning summons also break something. So you're using a lightning summon to break something, then also using him to break something else. I don't know. Is it better to just play the Opus 14 Ramuh that? Hey, I just cast Raiden and then I just kill your whole board kind of thing. Like, I don't know. It's like, he's fine. I don't have anything against him, but is he going to see play? That I don't know.
I mean, I like that he does something on entry. You know, immediately refunds the value to play him immediately by casting the summon.
Yeah.
That's a big improvement over the 14 Primal. Hitting only active forwards for the 8k is annoying, but like everybody has an untap step, and summons are instant speed. So that does mean he's never going to hit a Warrior of Light with the 8k ping, which is really annoying. Or Refia, or a Scion. You could like dull the Scions with the Y'shtola in response, and they just never will die to this. Like I like. It feels like they were worried about that text. They like tried to nerf it just a little bit. I still think it's like fine. You can have a steady stream of lightning summons thanks to a Man in Black. If you stick like Man in Black plus Ramuh,
Yeah.
like and just go ham, like which your opponent almost. You end up in that like weird situation that you end up against like Refia, where it's like I can't put anything on the field because it just dies, and like there's no point anymore, which is really strong. So I just think this guy is pretty solid in general. You know, if you go Cidolfus, Sersha, Odin, and then you prime into this, you pop a guy, you kill a guy, you feel pretty good in that exchange, right?
Yeah.
And then like you kind of have a threat your opponent now still has to deal with. So I think he's just good. I like that he casts any summon as well. Like, you know, if you're in a multi-element deck, maybe you like, I don't know, you want to cast
Mist Dragon, Kusith, more defensive cards, yeah.
Those, maybe like a 3 CP Leviathan, draw 2, put one, you know, like any like more expensive summons that are like utility summons. You could use this to cast Valofor if you want to. I don't know why you would, but like, you know, like stuff like that, right?
A 5 CP Fenrir would be kind of fun, and if you like combined it with Earth.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's so many options when you have that ability. So they could have limited it to just be lightning, and no one would have batted an eye. So I appreciate that. Ramza, kind of surprised they didn't use this art already. FFT 3 cost 7k. When it's put from the field into the break zone, gain a crystal, and then you can remove 2 cards in the break zone from the game to give him 1,000 power until the end of the turn. Seems like he'll be fine limited, because he doesn't even have Job Knight or like Warrior like some previous Ramses have. Like, I haven't played through Tactics all the way, so I don't know what the lore is on him being a mercenary here, but being a Knight and a Warrior, and that it's that like really recent Dissidia card, and then a Knight for every other card he's ever had. So I think that's strange. Go tell me in the comments if I should go play FFT and why I should, so that I can figure out the deep lore on why Ramza has 8 different jobs.
I have played FF Tactics, and even I don't understand it. I do like that art, though. I'm a sucker for any art of someone like looking off into the distance. I don't know why. Just like that. So.
I'm so looking forward to next set for the all the FFs, the new set of Final Fantasy VII characters looking off into the distance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the Aerith that I'm using as the background here. We should get a lot more of those for Rebirth for Sid, Vincent, and Kate
Yeah.
Sid. This is, I believe, the final Lightning one, and it is a doozy. So we have Leon.
Legend.
This is a legend with some pretty interesting Amano art. I think this one's gotten some pretty mixed reviews. I kind of love that they just take random concept art from Amano and use them on these cards, and some of them like
Right.
probably weren't going to show up outside of a random art book somewhere, but like it's kind of just fun. I don't know. I know some people don't really dislike Amano's art. I enjoy it. So one cost 9K, which is where you simultaneously get really excited and really scared because they've done this several times. When he enters the field, choose a damage forward, deal it 4,000 damage, which is just bizarre. So the real meat and bones of this card. When Leon is chosen by your opponent's ability, your opponent gains control of Leon. At the end of each of your turns, if you control one or less Job Rebel, Leon deals you 1 point of damage. I get the feeling Leon betrays you at some point.
Oh yes, quite, quite.
um, I'll let you talk on this. I imagine you have some. You're gonna have the more basic thoughts on this. I'll kind of try to next level a little bit.
Sure. So it doesn't help I misread it till just this very moment. I thought that final line of text said at the end of each of your turns, if your opponent doesn't control a rebel, deal a point of damage. I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. Like, if they take control of him, he actually then just starts hurting them. But if you are playing the rebels, he won't hurt you. No, that's not true. Whoever is controlling Leon, because he himself is a rebel, he is. If you control one or less rebel, he's gonna hurt you. Like, I've complained for a long time how they go in on theme over card design. This is like, we get it. Why does every Leon card have to have this betrayal? Like, we get it. I got it. Yes, I know that happens in 2. And like I said, the first effect, a damaged forward for 4K. 4K. And it has to. Why? I get he's overstated. He's a 1/9, but like that then hurts you if they just ignore it. I mean, you'll kill yourself. They can just go, okay, sure, go ahead and hit me for a single point of damage. Enjoy killing yourself as well. Like,
I mean,
I just don't get it. I liked it a lot more when, again, I thought it was like, oh, it's like a reward for playing Rebels.
it
And if
is.
they
It
take
is
him,
though.
it's like,
But it is.
how so?
If you have say you have a Joseph search Leon, play Leon. Leon's going to
Uh-huh.
look at the end of the turn. He's going to say, "Oh, you have 2 rebels because you have me and you have Joseph. You don't take a point of damage."
Oh, okay. So I did read it correctly then.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so yeah, it does. Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
If you have one or less rebels, he himself is a rebel. If he's the only rebel you control, he deals you a point of damage. If you control a second rebel, you don't take the damage.
So it is what I originally thought it
Yes.
was that, oh, okay. I just confused myself. Okay, you take over for a second then. I need to like reorganize my thoughts so I don't waste all that time.
Yeah, so I don't know what this first effect is doing on the card. I'm going to start with that. I can't see many situations where that's going to matter and exist and be important. Could be nice with like a Zac, like if you're in like, I guess you're going to be in fire anyway, probably because you really want Joseph, and you just go Zac, ping him for 3, Leon for 1, round up the Zac ping, thing dies. That's got to be the intent, I guess, right? Then the question is, how big is this swapping stuff? And I mean, the 1 CP 9K I think is unquestionably really good, right? Like, people say like, oh, power doesn't matter, power doesn't matter. When it comes to 9K, a 1 CP 9K, it's very hard for your opponent to trade up into this guy with like any kind of damage or blocking, right? Which feels really good. Then there's the weird thing where it's like the end of your turn, it's like, okay, your opponent can steal him. But if they steal him, he's hurting them every single turn because presumably your opponent isn't also playing rebels.
Yeah.
So I kind of like could see this like rebel aggro pile or like where like the idea is you play Leon, your opponent has to deal with him, and if the way they deal with him doesn't kill him, they take him, and say you attack with Leon, they take a damage from the Leon, and then it goes to their turn, and then they say I gotta get this guy off the field, I'm gonna take control of him, so they take control of him. At the end of the turn they take control of him, Leon deals them another point of damage. Like that's really strong, right?
Yeah.
Like that's 2 points of damage for 1 CP. most aggro decks would kill for that level of damage. I could see this like if say Chaos like started playing a lightning backup more consistently. I could see Chaos running this even, to be quite honest, because like the idea in the Chaos deck would be, I don't care how much damage I take. I'm gonna kill you before you kill me, no matter what. If you have to take control of the Leon to not die to him, he's gonna burn you. I'm feeling really good about that. So that said, when all is said and done, how good is this guy? I don't know. There's not a card like this. And I also don't think this card is a card that will be solved at all by the time the World Championship rolls around. This may be a card that we find out, like, towards the end of the set is actually, like, shockingly playable. Or people just don't experiment with it at all. We just, move on with the rest of our lives. I could see this card actually being this, like, much stronger card than he seems on the surface of it. Just because of that, like, I play him. I attack with him, I do a point of damage with my big, idiot. You say, I've had enough, I'm taking him. And then he deals you a second point of damage immediately. That's really good. Like, on rate, like, that's Estinian.
Yeah.
So, I kind of wish you switched if your opponent casts a summon, like, if that's the goal of the deck anyway. Like, you might as well go all in on that.
That's what I was thinking. Now that I've collected my thoughts, and he does work the way I thought he did. Okay, I like that a lot. I like that there's at least a Leon that now it kind of like rewards you instead of just punishing you. So I apologize for my incorrect read of the card earlier. I think the strength of this card will depend entirely on what it's matched up against, because I think some decks will not care about him at all and will just dumpster him. And others, if they run a lot of summons, even if they're running Lightning, okay, Thunder Drake him. Okay, I technically get control of him, and then he just dies anyway. You got him off the field. Like, there's so many ways to just deal with him right away.
Well, there's some funny situations with this card, though, too.
Sure.
Let's say I'm playing Refia and you're on Rebels, and you play Leon. Mm-hmm. And I try to spin this with Refia. So I go, Refia, I dull the Warriors of Light, I target Leon. Leon will respond on the stack by switching control, at which point he is no longer a valid target for Refia because Refia only targets opponents forwards.
True.
So you actually can't.
And see, that's what I meant, though. I think it's going to be super specific about what he's facing. Because if they don't have a weird clause like that, then they'll just be like, yeah, get him out of here, I don't care. But you're right, there are going to be some weird, Refia specifically, it actually doesn't work that way.
And you can't, like, Amaterasu to cancel the damage he's going to give you, so. In Yu-Gi-Oh, there's a card called Lava Golem that, like, it's one of its gimmicks is, like, it removes your opponent's forwards. It's a removal spell, which you could argue the big body on Leon is kind of like, and then it burns them every turn. This burns your opponent if they're controlling it, and if you're playing by its restrictions, you take no damage for having it. And maybe you, like, keep taking control of it, and now your opponent's like, I gotta take control of it again. Okay, give it back. Now I take my damage for it. And it's like, well, he's attacking anyway at that point, right? Like, even if they do that every turn. So, I can see a world where it's good. But again, there's just nothing like this. Like, none of the Betray cards have ever had this weird... Well, I guess, like, Leslie, but Leslie is not a playable card.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I kind of love this card for just how weird it is.
Dude, how out of place is that first line of text? Like, clearly the second two auto abilities, like, work together. And the first one just felt like, we got to put something else on there. I don't know, damage 4,000. There you go. He's done.
Yeah, like I said, I guess they're expecting it to be, like, Fire Lightning Rebels now, because, like, Joseph is so good.
Yeah, maybe.
Rebels are so scattered across, like, there's the Water Joseph, there's Water Fire Firion is, like, one of the best cards in the game. There was that weird attempt at, like, Fire Wind Rebels in Opus 15.
Yeah.
Like, that, he wouldn't fit in that deck. So, I don't know. There's the Minwu backup, which is in Ice.
Yeah, that is one other thing. The only other Rebels in Lightning are 3 versions of Firion, so, like, they're not really in that element.
Yeah. I don't know. It's a weird card. So, I don't know. You always say you wish they would do something different. This is something different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I give it. Well, again, now that I know how he properly works, it isn't just a pure betrayal against you. It's like there's actually a benefit to that, which is a good thing, so.
Yeah, I do wonder, like, if this was the right card to do this with, that they should have made it like, I don't know, like, is there a spy character in Final Fantasy that, like, kind of goes behind enemy lines and, like, I'm like trying to think, like, if there would be, like, a better character for this effect, because, like, from what I understand in FF2 story, Leon does, like, he betrays the party or whatever, but he doesn't, like,
Hmm.
work against the Emperor while he's working for the Emperor.
Correct. Well, I feel like there's an element of brain control. Like I don't think it's just he just does it because he's a jerk. It's been a minute since I played
Yeah, he's,
two.
no, yeah, he's mind controlled. Like, he becomes, like, a Black Knight for them. So it's like,
Yeah.
I almost wonder if, like, a spy would have worked better. Like, I don't know, a Yuffie would have done this. Like,
Yeah, that would make a little more
she's
sense.
like, you like Yuffie in the DLC for Seven Remake. She's like sneaking into Midgar and like trying to like mess stuff up inside of Midgar without like from under their noses. So like if you have like the I don't know have a Sonon backup that searches her and then does it like then she like you
Yeah.
donate her and then she does the burn damage or something.
Yeah.
So um, it also is kind of cute. One more small thing. You can't Amaterasu that last ability either. Like if it's like to prevent yourself from
Yeah.
dying, you can't like do that. You still could call him. You're calling him, or if you have like Porum, you just, like Porum would be so bad for you if your opponent like has
Yeah.
a Porum. Because you can't even take him back if your opponent has a Porum. Because then on the stack of you choosing him to steal him back, they Porum him so he doesn't switch sides.
Yeah.
Or no, he would still switch sides. You just have to do it
Well,
like
yeah, it's an
preemptively.
auto. It would go on the stack.
Yeah. Uh, it's going to be a nightmare to explain to two players.
Right?
Which is probably why it's a legend too. You don't want it to show up in
Yeah.
sealed packs too often for limited play. So with that and the very lengthy discussion, that is our lightning review. Stick around. We'll have water up soon and the LBs. Don't go anywhere.
See you then. Bye.